Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. Now, today I'm going to be answering a question that I get pretty frequently, and that question is, I have a friend or family member who has just written a book. What do they do next? That is quite a loaded question. And it's a loaded question because it's kind of like asking, I want to get a job. What do I do? Wow. Well, there's all kinds of paths to jobs and there's all kinds of paths to publishing. And then I also get the question from people who are, well, let's say they're thinking about self-publishing or getting a book contract and they don't really want to ask me directly, so they're asking for a friend because they don't want to tell me that they're doing a book and don't want me to know that they, won't be able to finish it, or they think I might try and sell them something. So they ask for a friend. But it is a really big question, and so what I'm making this video for is for something you can share with those family and friends that you have that are interested in doing a book, and maybe for yourself if you're asking for a friend. Wink, wink. So, first of all, usually if I'm wanting to work with an author, I want to be on the early part of the whole book process, but most of them, they've got the book done already. So we can't even really talk about, like purpose and, all those mission questions and everything. You got the darn thing done. Okay, fine. So now what? First of all, I would tell you to get your junk together. I cannot believe some of the authors that I have encountered who have not gotten their book into an electronic form. I've gotten inquiries about this online for, editing services and whatnot, and they'll say, oh, well, I have it in handwritten pages. I've even got an inquiry from someone who said, well, I have a binder of about 1,000 pages. Can we just, like go to coffee and you can look it over? No, not going to happen. And then I got one that was, I don't know how this exactly happened, but she would create JPEGs of, picture files of her pages. Okay. Get your book into Microsoft Word or some program that's kind of like Word, like Google Docs or Open Office, those type of things. Get it in a .doc or .docx format, because that's what you're going to be using with editors. You're going to use it with your self-publishing platform if you decide to go that route. It is the format that the publishing industry uses. So please get it in a format, in a Word compatible format, .doc or .docx. That is your first mission. Make sure it's all in one document. That's the other thing that I usually encounter. Oh, well, I have it in chapters. And I said, for a couple of them, I said, well, that's not a big deal. I'll just slam it all together when I do the editing. Oh, what a mess. I got one of them that was like 45 chapters long. And finally, I won't even accept anything unless it's in one document. So that's the other thing you need to do. Okay, now let's get one thing straight. The reason you are asking your family and friends about this whole publishing thing now that you've written a book is because you want to make some money, right? This is where most authors have the biggest problem, because once you have written your book and you want to make money, you become a salesperson. No author wants to hear that. They want to be just this artist that is handled and sponsored, and they have some patrons or they have somebody taking care of everything for them. Nope, you're a salesperson. And that is whether you decide to get a book deal with traditional publishing or you decide to self-publish. You're going to be selling your book to someone. So let's talk about the two paths. Let's talk about traditional publishing and then self-publishing. Traditional publishing first. One of the funniest questions I get from newer authors is, how do I get a book deal with a traditional publishing house, like one of the big trade publishers like HarperCollins, Simon Schuster, Penguin Random House? They want to get a book deal with a big publisher. And I really have to hide my laughter in the whole thing, because I don't want to crush their dreams, but at the same point, I kind of do, because the chances of that happening are slim to none. And it's just because the traditional publishing world that hires authors under contract, they get a book deal contract, the chances of that happening are so incredibly small. It's very competitive. And these publishers, they don't have unlimited funds, so they have to pick and choose their projects. And they're going to go with those that they think are going to be big sellers. A self-published book or one that you've just done randomly is probably not it. Just telling you. One of the other things that a lot of these authors don't realize is that in the traditional publishing world, a lot of those bigger publishers expect that you will be represented by an agent. Now that's just as hard as trying to get like a book deal with maybe a smaller publishing house. Getting an agent is really, really tough. Why? Because agents don't really advertise themselves a lot. They really don't. I heard at one writing conference that some of them hang out on Twitter, and I'm like, okay, I really haven't seen many of those, and I followed probably one of the main hashtags for writers, and I'm not seeing them pop up. So I don't know how true that is. There is a resource we'll talk about in a little bit where you might be able to find some, but generally that's a really tough thing to do as well. So the traditional publishing path is probably not going to be the most likely for most authors, just because it's so highly competitive. And I mean, it's a great thing if you can get it, because then the publisher handles all the, like editing and proofreading and the printing and the distribution and all of this. So they handle everything. And then what they give you is an advance. Now, when they give you an advance, that means it's an advance against royalties. So your book would have to make enough in royalties in order for you to make royalties on top of that. So it's considered an advance. Technically, I guess, if your book doesn't even make that, it doesn't make that money back, the publisher could ask for it back. I think it's highly unlikely that that would happen. I haven't heard of that really happening in a lot of cases, but it could happen. And if you get an agent, they're probably going to want a cut of everything too, because that's how they work. Agents are salespeople. They sell book manuscripts to publishers. So they're going to want a cut of what you get to. But if you are considering the traditional publishing path, you need to do one thing, and that is read the Writer's Market, which is published by Writer's Digest Books. You must read this book. And the only reason well, first of all, it's a directory to a lot of different publishers who are looking for people and manuscripts, or they're looking for authors and manuscripts. There are various editions of the Writer's Market. There's for poetry, children's, they even have an agent's directory. So you're going to want to go over to Amazon and type in Writer's Market. And then you'll see all the current editions because they publish it every year. Get those books and start reading them. And they have, those books have a lot of really good articles in them about the traditional publishing world, and you need to read those. So that is your assignment one if you have just written a book and you're thinking about getting a book deal. Now, when authors realize how hard it is to get a traditional book deal, and some of them want to do it anyway, some of them just go to the self-publishing route. It's the route that I've chosen. It's the route I will continue to choose because I want to control my destiny. Now, the good thing is that there are self-publishing platforms that you can use for free. And the one is Kindle Direct Publishing, otherwise known as KDP. It is an Amazon division, and they can help you publish your print book and your ebook on Kindle. Now, there are a couple of other self-publishing platforms that are great to consider, but some of them have a little bit different focus, and they offer hardcovers as well, and that would be Ingram Spark, BookBaby, and Lulu. Now, those are three others that are very reputable and are worth considering as well, especially if you are really wanting a hardcover or other type of format edition. But if you're going print and ebook, my personal choice is Kindle Direct Publishing because it's free. Some of those other platforms definitely have fees. Now, you have to decide, well, okay, which one do I want to use? And do I want to do print and ebook? And how am I going to get it formatted? That's the next big thing. Earlier, we talked about getting your manuscript together into a Microsoft Word document, and you will definitely need to do that, even on self-publishing, because you'll need to use that on the Kindle platform. There is a great new tool called Kindle Create, which will help you take that .doc or .docx Word compatible document and create your print and ebook with one file. It is an amazing tool. Again, it's called Kindle Create. It's still in beta mode, so it's a little wonky for the print side, but for the Kindle ebook side, it is fantastic. So I would suggest that you use it. Now, if you have a more complex book than what is just straight text, you're probably going to want to go with a designer or someone who can format your book for you. Again, they're going to want your Microsoft Word compatible text document to work with. That could run into some expense, and some of it would be probably in the hundreds of dollars. You can look on the likes of Fiverr or Upwork if you don't know anyone personally who can do that. And then you would upload that formatted document to Kindle Direct Publishing or BookBaby or Ingram Spark or whatever you are using. You would upload it to there. But the biggest problem with self-publishing is marketing it. Remember we talked about you are a salesperson once you become an author? And what you have to do is build your author platform. Now, what they mean by author platform is your fan base. That is something you're going to have to continually do as long as you want to be known as an author and as long as you want to make sales of your book. Now, I have a course that is on selling your self-published book on Amazon if you are going the self-published route. I do have another course that is on how to do a nonfiction Kindle ebook. Even if you do fiction, you might get some value out of that. I will provide links in the show description for those courses. They're on Udemy, and so I have a special discount just for my podcast friends. So if you'd like to check those out, I think you'll find them very, very helpful. So I hope you have a better idea of what the next steps are going to be. And they're different, a little bit different for everyone. But I hope you'll continue to listen to this podcast, and I hope you found this helpful. If you did, I would appreciate it if you would wander over to Apple Podcast and give the Heidi Thorne Show a nice rating and review. And while you're there, of course, subscribe to the Heidi Thorne Show podcast on Apple Podcast. If you're not on Apple, no problem. I'm on Stitcher and Podbean. If you like to listen on your Alexa, you just have to use the AnyPod skill to find the Heidi Thorne Show there. And if you like the video podcast better, no problem. I'm on YouTube. You just have to subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel and you'll get all the video podcasts that way. If you would share the Heidi Thorne Show on social media, I would really appreciate it, and especially this episode with those friends that really want to know what the next step is. I'd appreciate it if you would share it with them on social media. And if you want to find my self-published books, they're on Amazon. I use Kindle Direct Publishing. And so if you want to check them out, I'm on Amazon, and my print books, my ebooks, and my audiobooks are there. You just have to search for my name, Heidi Thorne. You'll find my author page. Go to my author page because that's where all my books are listed, and you can just easily find them all there. Now, if you like the audio editions better, I'm on Audible and Apple Books. If you'd like to connect with me, my website is very simply HeidiThorne.com. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode. And in the meantime, have a great day.